Hello everyone. My name is Hannah Lanfear, and I am completely delighted to be asked to speak to you guys today, and thanks very much for joining me. My background is very much in the cocktail and spirits community, and recently I had my 38th birthday, which marked the 21st year of my time spent in the trade. So I would have started out on my 17th birthday. I remember it well because I used to go and drink and spend all my money in the pub because I liked, as you do when you're 17, friends and music, and I was a very social being, and I was badgering the owner to let me behind the bar. And even though, and I think I can say this, it would have been illegal at the time, I got my wish. So I started bartending, I guess, at that age. Bartending, putting a very professional word in for what I did, which was basically pulling pints, but it ignited a love in this trade for me. And here I am 21 years later. I mean, from that point, I worked in all different kinds of bars. When I was very young, you know, I worked in wine bars. I worked in a flair bar, which I loved. I worked in the Oxo Tower, which at that time was very high-end contemporary cocktails. And then I desperately wanted to work at Milk and Honey, desperately. At the time, around the year 2003, it would have been the best bar in the world in my mind, or at least the London branch, the best in Europe. And I wanted so much to work there. So I was badgering Sam Jevons, who was the head bartender for the Match Group, to give me a trial. And every time I saw him, I would say this, you know, I'd go and drink his cocktails, sit at the bar, and then be like, can I have a trial shift? And one day he broke and he was like, yes, we need someone. So we're trialing. And I was the 34th person to trial for the role of junior bartender. That's how hot this bar was for those in the trade. And I got the job. It was a pivotal moment in my life. You know, I don't think I would be where I am today in my career had I not got to work there. And I was there, I think, for 3.5 years, or to be very honest with you, my memory is blurry of that time because we were working hard and playing hard. But yeah, I was there for a while, and I managed to escalate to the position of head bartender in that time. From that point onwards, I worked as a bar manager. I spent many years doing that. I got to do some consultancy. I worked with Angus Winchester in Copenhagen. That was a favourite moment. And I ultimately moved into working for a distillery. And I worked there for around 4 years in Bermondsey at Jensen's Gym. I was the international brand ambassador. I worked on the exports of the product, so I helped to set up new markets. And I loved this moment because I got to really immerse myself in gin history. I was working with Dr. Anne Brock, who is now the master distiller at Bombay Sapphire. And she taught me a lot, you know, about the science of distillation. Yeah, they were good years. It was tough, but it was good. Now, a pivotal moment, and after 4 years in a job, I think I had developed that spark of wanting to do something of my own volition for myself. And at certain points in my career, I'd been Bermondsey-centric, where the WSET, or the Wine Spirits Education Trust, is. And I got to do my Educator course with them. I left Jensen's and I began to teach at the WSET, and I founded my own company. So I am the owner and director of the Mixing Class, which is a company dedicated entirely to spirits education. And of my topics to talk to you about today, I've been asked, what was this tipping point in my career where I realized that education was for me and in my future? And it's my feeling that education, or spirits education, has always underpinned everything that I did, which, you know, is ironic because I completely did not do well in formal school. You know, I didn't have the interest in learning in that environment, but I love to learn. Now, when I worked at the Match Group, we were very fortunate as the bar team there to benefit from this incredible training program that I believe was groundbreaking. I mean, you can look at all of the people that were bartenders that went through that training program and see just how incredibly well they've done in the trade. The owner of the Match Group is a well-known character called Jonathan Downey, who had recognised early on that investing in education for his bar team would get him the best bar team in the world. And that was his motivation, truly. I had the fortune to interview him some years ago for an article that I wrote about milk and honey. And he told me that his idea or ideal was that he realized that if he got the best people in the whole industry to train his team, then he could get the best bar team in the world. And that's what happened. He flew in Dale DeGroff from New York to come and teach the team. He flew in Sasha Petrasky, with whom he opened Milk and Honey. But Sasha was always on hand to teach us. And to handle spirits education for the Match Group, the late and great Mark Ridgewell would do monthly training sessions. I think you look at the bartenders that went through that program, and we can all unequivocally agree that his motivation paid off, right? And it wasn't just the fact that there was spirits education for us, but he also incentivized it in pay structure, and he rewarded people that did well. So you would do an exam, and if you won, came in the top 3, you'd get to go on a trip. And he incentivized people to learn, and the rewards for him were untold, because he got to keep staff for 3 years was sort of the average. And he set these young people in their early 20s on a pathway to treasure their career in hospitality and to prioritize learning throughout their future. So for me personally, it was the fact that the practical work of bartending, which I love the craft of making, you know, this is a job where you work with your hands and you create something beautiful with them, but it's that it goes hand in hand with learning and sharing that learning that made me love it the most. So in founding the mixing class, I feel like this love of learning had been there all along. And I wanted very much to give that love of learning back to the industry, because I look at cocktail bars and I see incredible pressure there. And I'm talking before the present situation, but I see incredible pressure on bars. They've got very high overheads, and the staff turnover is enormous. And I see spirits education as something that can really be used to motivate a team to stay, because any bartender or any staff member, full stop, who is learning and growing has no reason to look anywhere else or to move job. Providing they are feeling like they are being nourished, they will stay. And so spirits education is incredibly valuable for staff retention, but more than that, your guests will profit and benefit from the love that they will give their work if they are learning, because a brain that is fed and is growing is a happy brain, right? Right now, you know, bars are in a moment of extreme strife and closed, and when we reopen, I think it's very important for us to revisit this idea of why is it that people will leave their homes to go to a bar? What is going to make them take that risk and go out and socialize? And we need to examine this. We need to figure out how to tempt people back. And let's not forget that everyone's been at home making themselves triple G&Ts. Like, why do they need bartenders anymore when they've been making perfectly decent drinks with spirits and high quality mixers? You know, that's all possible at home now, thanks to the sort of boom in quality soft drinks. So going out to bars, on the face of it, it's very much about meeting people, I suppose, socializing, having dates, meeting your friends. But it's much more than that. It's a multi-sensory consumption of a space that makes people want to leave home. You know, it's the enjoyment of the design of the room, the decadence of the bathrooms. It's the opportunity to feast your mind on the unfamiliar and live more decadently than you would do at home, right? So it's every time you do something new or you go somewhere new, your mind is learning and growing in a different way. But then additionally, you know, as the embodiment of the series Cheers, as in the embodiment of hospitality in the series Cheers, that familiarity of having a bartender who's happy to see you and knows what you want to drink. There's a social connection there as well. We offer the curation of pleasures that you enjoy through taste, right? Touch and taste. It's sensory pleasures. And I believe there is magic in watching the skill of a bartender who is, you know, competently and fluidly making these drinks. There's beauty in that. The idea that a bartender can unlock the mysteries of spirits, which I think to the consumer, these are challenging things that we don't know very much about. And the bartender is the gatekeeper of these things. They can explain them, they can put them together, they can make magic from them. So it's more than just the process, but there is this tacit knowledge that you are using to make drinks that goes hand in hand with the experience. And I suppose we see how important that is from brands, because they know that bartenders are the gatekeepers of stories for them. So they pour their money into educating us. They don't, you know, they're not just treating us to amazing trips to see distilleries and fantastic experiences. You know, the bartender is spoiled by the commercial brand because we are telling their story. So for me personally, being in a bar, I have an expectation and a need to know that the bartender knows how to use every spirit, and how to use it is the important thing, to know why they use it. And I think the understanding of flavor profile and texture and the structure of a spirit is essential to knowing how to use it. I was watching, what's it called, Chef's Table the other day, and this really struck me. You know, I've always been saying that the difference between a cook and a chef, someone told me this once, by the way, it's not my quite, but the difference between a cook and a chef is that a chef has the complete knowledge of their ingredients. The techniques that they use are the same. Great chefs know their ingredients inside out, and I don't think it's too much of us to ask our industry to do the same. I don't think that's too much to ask of bartenders. We need to know why we would use a particular rum in one cocktail over another, why something will not work in that drink. And as a consumer, as a person that would go to a bar, I believe that every bartender should be able to use that knowledge effectively. Now, if we want bartenders to stay in the industry and to grow and become skilled and stay in a job, I think it's essential that we as an industry start to formalize career progression. Because watching Chef's Table, it really struck me, you know, that why is it that chefs will work in these very harsh, hot environments, incredibly long hours, you know, often quite a very tough environment? And why do they do that? And we don't do that. You know, the lifespan of a bartender, so to speak, seems much shorter to me, because we want to get out and we want to do something else, and we don't want to be on our feet late into the night. And yet a chef will do that. And I believe that it's down to the career progression and the rungs that you have to climb. Because a chef will start off as a KP, a kitchen porter, or working in larder, peeling spuds. And they will then get up to commis chef, or, you know, a junior chef. Then they get a specialty and they'll be doing sauce or fish or pastry or grill, or, you know, take a station, for example. And from that moment, they'll get to be a junior sous, and then a sous, and then a head chef, and then an executive chef. So they climb these rungs, and it's that career progression that keeps them constantly motivated to get better and to keep learning. And I think the bar industry suffers because we all want out. And it can't just be the conditions of work, because they're very similar to a kitchen. I think it's because we don't have that ambition, because there isn't always a clear next step. We all want to be brand ambassadors, and I think that's bullshit, because being a brand ambassador doesn't even have transferable skills to being a bartender. So many bartenders I speak to have that ambition. I want to be a brand ambassador. I don't want to bartend anymore. I want to be a brand ambassador. But that's a sales job. and it has its own hardships, and it doesn't make a logical sense as a follow-on for me. And I sound negative, but I think what I hope is that as an industry, we can start to recognize that we need to be offering these steps to keep moving up, so that bartenders can keep learning and growing and staying behind the bar and becoming bar managers, and then sharing their knowledge and teaching down. And I think there's a risk at the moment, you know, as bars start to reopen, are we going to prioritize education? Are we going to prioritize learning? Because yes, it is expensive to train people. You have to make time. You have to make that effort. You have to provide a training program. But the expense of not doing it is far, far greater, because if you are not educating people and you don't give them that, they will quit. They'll move on. They'll go somewhere else. They'll do something else. I think I outlined this a bit because you know, my moment when I went to go and work in Boysdale, I was looking after and purchased, you know, 1,000 single malt scotches, and that became a real labour of love for me, and I love that spirit. And then moving to Jensen's, I immersed myself not just in gin history, but also really, really nerdy cataloguing of distilleries in London, and cycling through the different eras of gin production and how they changed. And I think it's that understanding of how distillation impacted gin and the history of gin that just enthralled me. And I guess I really got into sharing that with people, doing tours and so on. Other spirits that are my specialist topics. I mean, I love cognac, and I have been to visit cognac a couple of times. Armagnac is an absolute fascination to me. I adore it, and I do a lot of Armagnac education for the UK. I am the UK Armagnac educator. So maybe some of you have met me doing that with my different hat on. And recently in January, I got this opportunity to go and witness Soshu distillation firsthand in Japan. So I suppose it is these like trips to go and see distilleries that really ignite a passion for me. And I'm absolutely dedicated to continuing to do that, so that I can make my own spirits education better and better and better. And that's where I love my job, because I am always learning, so that I can share with passion, and so that I understand my topic better and better. Thanks for coming. Cheers. I'd like to invite you to visit the Vanguard YouTube channel. They've got more videos, and it's termed Speakeasy with Vanguard, the evolution of hospitality. Thank you very much. Good night.